Hey everybody, welcome back to the Freshly Squeezed podcast. I'm Christian Schneider. I'm here with my buddy Pratik Parmar, and we've got a guest host today, Boston Celtics fan. We got Sonny here, so thanks for coming on the podcast today. Yeah, flexing the jersey
Yeah,
already. I
man,
love
no
it.
worries. Thank you for having me.
hmm Well, let's jump right into it today. Obviously, we've had a crazy series so far. 6 games of just back and forth action, up and down games, a few blowouts. But ultimately, this series is going to be decided by one game, and that's Game 7 tomorrow night. On Friday night here. So, what are you guys' thoughts? And let's hear your predictions right off the bat. Let's hear who's gonna win Game 7, and why do you think what do you think the answer is gonna be?
Raps? No, I don't know. Do you want to go first, Sunny? We already know. We already know who's picking who.
Yeah, sure.
Wait, that's without being said. We already know that. So how about you tell us who do you think is gonna win the series
Yeah,
for you
no, no.
guys?
By all means, you guys have the momentum. Raptors definitely do have the momentum. Like if you think about going back to the game three, the OG Anunoby shot was great. Like that's why we're here at game seven. That's a big shot. But saying that, I would say that I have seen this series. I have seen game one. I have seen game five. If the first half we play great, if the Celtics focus on their defense, I think it'll be another blowout for Game Seven. Again, if the first half is good, my pick is Celtics.
So, what are the keys? What do they got to do there? You said defense is key, but who's got to step? Is that the only thing? You think offensively? Obviously, Kemba Walker had 55 minutes and 5 points last game, so clearly they need to step it up on the offensive end. I don't think just defense is going to be enough to win the Game 7.
Big. That's true. I completely agree. But
Yeah, no,
so
absolutely.
here's the thing, right? We both have a deficit because Siakam didn't show up either, and neither did Kemba Walker. Because we have three players on each side, like our starting lineups. Siakam, VanVleet, and Kyle Lowry versus Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kemba Walker. Those are the three big stars on each team. We expect those three guys to be one of the three people to score a 25, 30 point game. So when it comes to game seven, I think all three of these guys need to show out. Otherwise, one team can definitely take the edge over the other.
Well, we've seen, and it's been proved, obviously, with Game 6 and a few other games in this series, particularly, I think Games 2 to 4 were relatively close. But both teams have a ton of heart, a ton of grit, and I think that's exactly what we can expect in Game 7. And that's not going to be lacking from either side, I think we found out. Obviously, with the double OT game, both sides, that game was a coin toss going into double overtime. Really, it could have ended up with either way. One shot doesn't go in for either team, and Raptors don't make some big threes down in the second overtime. Late in game, they could have called a foul there on Kemba Walker on the last play. So any of these things happen, and it could be a different result. And so like I said, it's really just they're going to bring the intensity, and I think it's going to come down to who stays calmer in the moment, who shows up for the moment and executes. And that's why I'm leaning towards the Raptors. That's their defending champion experience. They've been in big games before. They've been there in a game 7 with Philly last year. They've been to these big moments. Whereas the Celtics, I mean, this is the first time in a where they're young stars, and with this core of players, they're going through an experience like this. And so that's why I'm going to have to give the edge to the Raptors. I think it comes down to that championship experience.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with the whole young version that you mentioned, that obviously our boys are young, but we've been in this situation, whether if it's the first time going, a rookie Tatum. Sorry, I think I'm having tough.
No, no, you're
That's all
good.
right.
You're good. You're
That's
good.
all right. Keep it
I'm
Yeah.
rolling.
good. You guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, so like I was saying, yeah, I mean, I do kind of agree with you guys. Obviously, Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, they're both young players, but they have that kind of experience. They have that playoff experience. And on top of that, you add Kemba Walker. I feel like if Kemba Walker just needs to lead and needs to be more aggressive, and the Celtics bring on their defense, I think we could be in okay. mode where we can, have a good first half and everything stays calm. We get a good lead, and I think we can definitely, put this thing behind us. But again, you guys are the defending champions, and I'm gonna have to give the respect to you guys. And obviously, you guys play hard, and same with us. We play hard as well. Like we
Hmm.
saw games that look like finals. I don't know, but I think everyone knows that it was an instant classic. Everybody was tweeting. All the other players were watching the games too. Apparently, Kanye West was watching on a 100-foot TV screen, so everybody was watching the game. So it was a big game. But Game 7, man, it's gonna be fun.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's gonna be intense, bro. It's gonna be. I honestly feel like, even though the Miami Heat showed out and destroyed the Bucks, for the Raptors, personally speaking, this has to be their hardest matchup, apart from going to the finals. Definitely the hardest matchup of the playoffs. Like Celtics, I mean, me and Sunny have talked about the Celtics were the only team that have held Raptors down consistently to such a low point scoring average.
Yeah.
We're literally hovering around the 80s, low 90s every time we face the Celtics, which is pretty aggressive versus other teams where we're blowing them out 130, 140. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so
And
I'm gonna let you go, Christian. But like I do also I'm a little bit worried about the Celtics, but I'm not too worried because of how many game sevens the Raptors have just pulled out. It's just crazy. They come out guns loaded.
But that's a thing, right? Yeah, that's a good point you brought up. But I feel like the pressure is on the Raptors for some reason. I feel like, and this is what it is. I keep going back to the game one, game five, the big blowout wins over you guys. That's because they play through defense, and then they let their defense get to work, and then Raptors get open looks and they miss shots because they're not in their rhythm where they usually do, like, they make shots and they feel hot and they're like, okay, I can shoot another one, and then good shooting that. But if the defense is strong and Raptors, they're limited to their 3-point shooting, I think we can, I keep saying this, but it'll be a good game. It'll be good. I'm looking forward to it, man.
Well, so let's talk about the keys to the game. So I think the key players, like who on each side is going to need to show up for the games, because obviously we saw last game the key players had performances. For the Celtics were Tatum and Brown. They had exceptional performances. For the Raptors, it was Lowry, a little bit of Norman, a little bit of Gasol. OG Anunoby had a fantastic game, so they did it a little bit more by committee. Um, so who do you think the X factor is going to be? And I'll give my picks here. So I think for the Raptors, it's going to need to be Fred VanVleet. That's kind of my X factor going into this game, and he's a guy who's really he's put up decent numbers, but for the most part, he hasn't been making his shots, and I don't think he's been performing up to expectations as of yet. And everyone's talking about him being one of the stars on the Raptors, and I think his lack of performance has kind of been dismissed because Siakam has been so far gone. And so I really think it's going to be on Van Vliet to step up. I've kind of lost hope for Siakam to step up and be that guy. I kind of anticipate it to be Lowry each game now as our leader. But Van Vliet is going to have to step up and make shots. So he's my X factor for the Raptors. On the other side, going over to the Celtics, I think it's going to have to be Jason Tatum. He's the star of that team. He's the young star. He's the guy who has the highest expectations on him. To the point of Siakam, they were arguing going into the series who's going to be the best performer out of Siakam and Tatum. That's kind of the battle that was expected to be had. And to this point, it's been a very one-sided battle. It's been Tatum all up to this point. And he's played exceptional, and he's the star of that team, and he's going to have to step up and make big plays for them to move on. And so those are the two guys for me. How about you guys, Pratik? Who do you think is going to have to be the X factors?
So I actually completely agree with you there. Is Van Vliet is 100% the main X factor, because going into this, now that we've realized 6 games later, Ibaka and Marc Gasol have done good. Marc Gasol was good on the defensive end. He's been hitting a few shots. Ibaka's been pretty amazing at the 3-point line. But aside from them, we've realized that we got to up the small ball game, because we're clearly not taking advantage of being on those post plays. We're not doing those Daniel Tice lobs and stuff. So we need Van Vliet to come out next game and do what he does in Game 7 like he did last year. he literally helped us close out with how many clutch 3-pointers. Well, I mean, at the time he had his baby as well, but 100% agree. I think VanVleet can bring it, man. And then as for the Celtics, I'm not gonna put it just on Jason Tatum because I think Jaylen Brown is just as good as him right now. Those guys sort of interchange their position. If one guy is not having so much of a good game, the other guy's there to pick up the slack and support him. We saw that in Game 6. Jaylen Brown definitely showed out. Jason Tatum did have an amazing game, but Jaylen Brown was more efficient on the defensive end. He was more aggressive, things like that. So, yeah, I leave it up to those guys. Kemba Walker, he is the leader, but I think it's more just to play that supporting cast. But he definitely needs to shoot better than last game. But, yeah, so VanVleet and on Celtics, Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. I'm not going to give it to either one of them, but I think both can. Brad Stevens will decide.
That's a great point because they complement each other really well. They complement each other really well as wings. But let's hear from you, Sonny. Who do you think is going to be the X factor?
So definitely your go-to guy on your team is VanVleet, like no doubt. If that guy gets going, oof. You guys remember the finals, last year finals? Ooh, if it wasn't for that guy, like a lot of people talk about like, oh, it's because of Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, but when Kawhi Leonard's getting like clamped and then two players on him, who did you guys go to? VanVleet was your go-to guy.
He got the one Finals MVP vote. The other one.
That's what I'm saying. So there's no Kawhi in the picture. VanVleet is your guy. If VanVleet gets high, if you think about it, we haven't been doubling Siakam. Yeah. We have let Jaylen Brown just, no help, no nothing. Jaylen Brown is a good defensive player. Take care of Siakam. But when it comes to VanVleet, you would see somewhat we are trying to take care of Kyle Lowry and VanVleet. Like, we haven't been doubling pretty much anyone. But if VanVleet, this guy is, I'm telling you, if he gets going, we can be in trouble. And that's why that's definitely one of the guys that needs to step up. And especially on our team, like Pratik said, that Jason Tatum, Brown, yeah, definitely both of them guys. But I want to see a big game from Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker, as you said, he's a leader. He leads with a smile on, and he, if you miss a shot, he's always the first one to like, yo, keep a head up. And he needs to have a huge game. I know you guys mentioned the stats from last game. If Kemba Walker gets going and with the step, we didn't see the step back. We didn't see the crossover. I want to see cardiac Kemba. That's it. If cardiac Kemba shows up in Game 7, we're going to the next round.
Well, that's the one thing that surprised me from this series. And you talk about the guard play, right? So me and Pratik had a pod going into the series where we anticipated it was going to be a big man battle, and we thought Toronto was going to have to take advantage of size advantage, and we thought we had the size advantage with Ibaka and Gasol and Siakam. We thought there were a few mismatches they might be able to take advantage of. But for one, I think I underestimated the play of Tice. And for two, I think we just haven't look at what makes up both teams. I mean, their guards are key to both teams. With
It was so funny because Raptors were playing small ball, and we had Daniel Tice in. It was...
We put OG at the 5, and it worked out spectacularly. OG at the 5, he's got hops. Like some of the winning plays he made with winning jump balls there at the end of games. Like he won 3 jump balls, I think, in that game. Absolutely incredible from OG. What a decision for him to put him there.
Norman, I'm sorry, what's his name?
Norman Powell.
Norman Powell, yeah.
Storm and Norman.
Exactly, Storm and Norman. Holy crap, how's he not getting any minutes, bro? I am so glad they're putting Marc Gasol in. By all means, you keep playing Marc Gasol. By all means, they're not putting in Ibaka. I'm just like blown away. I think I heard Nick Nurse say once like, oh, I forgot to put him in. I'm like, what? He's another go-to guy, like you saw in Game 6. How you not putting that player in? I am so glad. Your bench, I know you guys hit a record of bench points, and I think Norman Powell is a big factor when it comes to when we talk about Raptors bench. Yeah. Right? And you guys can correct me wrong. I mean, I don't watch that much Raptors ball, but I think it was a big factor.
He is hands down 6th man.
Exactly.
He is, but he's had a long history with the Raptors of on hot and cold. So he's ever since he had back when we had DeMar, he had he had one breakout season where we paid him. That's where we gave him a big contract. We showed him the bag. And then after
Okay.
that season, immediately after he got paid, he just slowed down production immediately. I think Casey threw him way back on the bench. He didn't play at all. So people were saying, like, we paid this guy and he's just not performing, and we weren't scared to bench him, and so we benched him. But as soon as Nick Nurse came back, so Nick Nurse got hired, we fired Dwayne Casey. He started making his way back into the rotation last year, and we see him. I think he's being utilized a lot better. I think he's being utilized in more of a Lou Williams kind of way, like offensive spark, where he can come in the game and control the ball handling. He can make big plays.
And, exactly. He's bucket. He can get you buckets. That's what I noticed.
Yeah,
So,
he can be a walking bucket. But when he's cold, it's like he was cold in Game 5, and I was wondering where the heck was he? And people were saying, we talked about this in our podcast yesterday, where people were saying we need to replace his minutes with Matt Thomas. But obviously that's just the fans being quick to judge. And we talked about Nurse's investment in the players' confidence and how Nick Nurse always sticks with his guys.
I can't. I just want to add to that whole thing. I can't get enough of fans saying let's swap out players just because they had singular bad games. Well, they're our starting lineup for a reason. You want them to be on the starting lineup because they're the most consistent all the time. So
but that's the culture we live in, right? Like that's what people are used to. Like, oh, if something's not working, let's break it apart. Like that's what basketball is. And now you have players speaking up like, oh, I don't want to be here. I want to go. So that's the thing. I think people are very quick, especially in these times, with like people are really quick to break things up instead of patience. Like I think a lot of teams need a lot of patience and team chemistry. Like look at us, we're big on team chemistry right now. With Kyrie and everything, we never thought we'd have that issue. But this is like, it's not a new thing. I mean, you look at other and in the past, I think we have seen like big stars, getting together, and just chemistry is just not there. So I think chemistry and just sticking with, as you guys mentioned, Nick Nurse, just kind of going back to Norman and giving him minutes. So it's like sticking to your guys and having that faith.
There's something about to be said about the culture there, right? I mean, with the Raptors culture and same with the Celtics culture, you feel it. I mean, Danny Ainge and Masai Ujiri are the two guys in the league where every time the best general manager conversation comes up, they're the top two at the list. It's Danny Ainge and Masai Ujiri. I don't even think it's close. Like, I don't know who else can compete with that. I mean, there's big rosters, obviously, like the Lakers can get LeBron and they traded for AD, but that's more of a big market kind of play. In terms of being able to build up your team and working with, you're not working with a lot. Obviously, they're not small. We don't have small markets, but the culture starts there at the top with those great general managers.
Exactly.
I feel like it works their way down to the coach. They hire great coaches. And the whole team is just confident in each other, and they believe in their systems. And to your point, the culture of fans now, they're all saying it's always move on. If something doesn't work, move on. You see that a lot in rebuilds, and people are demanding rebuilds whenever their team, they lose a playoff series or whatever happens. Like I'm looking, if you go to the Sixers Reddit, I
was going to mention that.
Everyone is calling for rebuilds left, right, and center. Get rid of Brett Brown. Get rid of Simmons or Embiid. Get rid of this. Get rid of everything and restart the whole thing. And it's not that easy of a process, and you don't realize until, like, as a Raptors fan here, we went through so much pain and just heartbreak getting swept by LeBron and LeBronto and all that, where it's and you have to go through those growing pains to learn what you need to do next. And you don't rebuild and break it all up. You make small moves, make yourself a little bit better, And the whole blowing up thing is, I agree.
And you know what, man? On that whole point, if you think about every championship team, that's how they were eventually built up. It was so many core players that were there for a long time. If you look at our team, obviously we have Kyle Lowry. We have many bench players who are, like, obviously Norman Powell is a veteran bench player. Vanvleet has been here for many years since DeRozan as well.
OG and Siakam both drafted.
Both drafted. So
that's what very common culture that I see between Raptors and Celtics, that we develop our players.
Yes.
We develop our players. Like all these picks, I think Siakam is a late pick as well. And there was another player. All these are like late picks, and then you develop like like all stars. Like it's a big responsibility, and then that goes to the organization and coaching staff, like how we're
Exactly.
developing these players.
Well, think about all the teams that where you notice player development is the biggest part of their system. You go to let's name. I mean, we got Toronto, we got Boston, we got Golden State drafting Steph Curry, Klay Thompson,
Spurs.
Draymond Green, San
Spurs,
Antonio
yeah.
Spurs.
Yeah.
Who else? Denver Nuggets is a surprise
yeah.
one where
Oh my
they've
God,
been
yeah.
drafting like crazy. They got Bull, they got Michael Porter Jr. over there developing
Yeah.
Jokic. I mean, like these teams that have a fantastic player development system, they stick around for the long run, and those are the teams that are going to be in the championship fight year in and year out.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And Suns.
Suns.
Phoenix
Oh.
Suns. This will be interesting. They have become my new favorite team in the West. They are after their undefeated bubble run. I was so heartbroken
my
for them that
God.
they didn't get in. I started watching probably since they went 4-0. I watched every game after that, and I
Yeah.
love their heart. I love their compete. Devin Booker's a savage.
Yeah,
And
You
obviously
better
we're
cross
getting,
your fingers that they do not separate, bro.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, right? And I
Yeah,
think they ended their season on a high note, and
they
it's
did.
going to help them. It's going to help
Yeah.
them.
We'll see what
Well,
Devin Booker does. A lot of these rookies are making drastic decisions, you know?
let's bring up. I just want to bring up quick. Things could have been drastically different for the Boston Celtics and Phoenix Suns had the Suns not made the biggest mistake of drafting Josh Jackson over Jason Tatum. That was
my
one
God.
of the biggest bonehead moves. I was reading an article about this, and it would we would be in a very different place right now. I don't know if we'd be here in this Game 7 situation.
Yeah, no.
But
Yep.
the Phoenix Suns, I read an article where Tatum came in and hit 43s in a row in their practice, kind of their draft workout, right?
Yeah,
And so Tatum
yeah.
came and hit 43s in a row. Everyone in the entire organization is buzzing about Tatum. They all want him. But the owner of the team says, no, we can't have two wings. We already have Booker. We can't have another wing. Not realizing that they would complement each other. And so here we are, where Devin Booker and Jason Tatum could have been the Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum of the league.
Yeah, exactly.
We're in
Totally.
this situation where we're fortunate enough to have this banger of a series.
It's so funny you brought that up, the whole Jason Tatum workout with the Suns. And Jason Tatum was, like, and maybe you don't think of the player's point of view. They just get this, they get into NBA, and I think Tatum's whole thing was like, it's sunny weather and I'll get a big house and all that. And then he thought, like, why would I go to Boston? Boston's already, like, up there. I want to, like, the players think about that too. They want to grow with the organization, right? And which is absolutely fine. But as you mentioned, the pre-workout with the teams, I know Tyler Hero. I want to talk about Tyler Hero real quick.
Yeah,
He
okay.
came out and worked out with the Boston Celtics, and he was just shooting lights out. And we were Boston was so impressed by him, but apparently we're gonna get him. But man, that kid is something.
So
And now we're gonna have to go up against them, either us or you.
yeah.
We're going up against Tyler Hero and
Tyler
the
Hero.
Heat. And so let's talk about that real quick before we wrap it up. This will be our last topic of conversation. The winner of the series, the Raptors or Celtics, will have to go on to play the Miami Heat. They swept the Pacers. Didn't see that coming. Obviously, they didn't have Sabonis, but incredible sweep. They really just put their foot down and dominated them. Then comes to the Bucks, near sweep. If it wasn't for late game heroics by Chris Middleton, it would have been a sweep. But just absolutely dominant of the best team in the league. And I gotta say, like, whether it's Celtics or Raptors, I am scared for whoever has to go up against this Heat team. Who do you guys think has the better chance? Do you like? Well, we'll go here. So, Sonny, let's hear your odds for the Celtics and how you like the Celtics matchup against the Heat.
I mean, I'm being a little biased here, but I think I want Heat. I definitely want Miami Heat, but we played them last game and we played them without Jimmy Bucket and we lost. So they're a tough team. I'm not gonna lie, they're a tough team. They're a bunch of dogs. Jay Crowder, a
That
former
was a
Celtic.
great midseason pickup.
Yes. Oh my Lord.
Good wing
those are
shooter,
just
good
good.
defender.
Exactly. Those are just good moves by the organization. Like, you have to give credit to the organization. I go back to the culture of these, like our culture, Raptors, Celtics, and Miami Heat now. Like, you go back to these organizations, they're great organizations because I don't want to say like a player like big name like just like Kyrie, and Kyrie kind of came in and he thought that he was gonna be like that go-to guy, he's gonna lead and he's gonna be the man, right? So, but Celtics is not that kind of organization. Celtics is like a culture that it's the entire team. You have to take the entire team. It's not a one-man show. So that's why maybe I keep going back to the whole chemistry issue with Kyrie and in the picture, and that's why players were just like so confused and miscommunication, and players was like, no, it's not Kyrie's fault, but it was just that whole vibe. Again, it's just going back to the chemistry. It just didn't click with them, and we just glad we're just like like so glad that we somehow got Kemba Walker, and for the past like decade we I mean look at our point guards like Rondo. You have Rondo now playing for the Lakers, by the way. Rondo, and then Kyrie, and then Kemba Walker, and then Isaiah Thomas. Oh my man!
Oh, he was big time. He was big time for you guys. That's a guy who's been sad to see his career go down a little bit.
But yeah, going back to your question, against the Heat, I like to see us. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough battle with those guys. Those guys they play hard, and Giannis is, again, he's an MVP, and he keeps going back to, people talk about his stats and this and that, but he is not a go-to guy. Their go-to guy is Chris Middleton. Simple. Their go-to guys like once Giannis gets stopped. I mean,
well, we solved them last year, so I mean, like the whole thing is, I think we created a funnel to the rim for Giannis. We let him shoot, and created a funnel, and that's what everyone's done. The Heat's done it, and it shows. They need to find a different way to operate their team and their offense. They can't be so one-dimensional.
Apparently, Giannis somehow changed his shooting form. That's what I've heard recently. So I don't know what kind of went into that, but apparently he was shooting okay.
What I noticed already is he got better at his 3-point, but his mid-range suffered. It's an interesting like trade-off that he has, because before he was fine with the mid-range. He can drain those. But now, and he had absolutely no 3-point ability, but now it's like a weird.
B-Ball Breakdown does a great analysis on YouTube. If you look up Giannis's shot, and he talks about how he was actually a good shooter at the start of his career and how it's slowly dipped. So that was a great analysis. But back to the question. So going up to the Heat, I want to hear. Obviously you like the Celtics in that series, but if the Raptors happen to move on, Pratik, what are your thoughts on that series and how we match up against the Heat?
With the Heat, I mean. I think they're defensive juggernauts. Like, we have issues with the Celtics already. I think either one of us going up against Heat, we're getting serious foul trouble, intense foul trouble. Guys are going to be, flopping all over the place. Like, every time any team has ever faced Miami in the playoffs, they're such a physical team. Like, they remind me of the way the Detroit Pistons plays, but not in the same, like, dirty manner, but they're hard like that. You know what I mean? So I think that's the one main issue we're going to run into. I don't really think the scoring is going to be a problem with the Miami Heat. I mean, Tyler Herro is lights out. Their 3-point shooting is actually the best in the East. Am I right? I think their 3-point field goal percentage is the highest in the East. But we'll see.
So that's one series where it's going to be another dogfight, right? Like Celtics and Raptors are in it right now. It's going to be the exact same thing with them. Like I see, when we had DeRozan, we had those battles with them where it was Dragic was part of the main show, and Dwayne Wade, and we've had some crazy battles with them. They're a team that's always in it, and that's their culture. Their culture is one of, it's a little bit different, but it's complete grind and grit, and they don't have players on their team that aren't just underdog, just battlers. So they got that mentality over there, which is just underdog fight, so much fight in that mentality. And that comes again up to their GM, down to Eric Spoelstra, and through the whole team. So it's incredible what they've got going on over there. But to that point, I think if the Raptors move on, I think we have a good chance. We've had their number generally. We had them in the bubble game this year. We had a pretty good win against them. But their offense is a little bit different than the Celtics. Whereas I think the Celtics scare us a little bit more because they have crazy wing play, great guard play, and they have bigs who can hold their own with Williams and Tice.
Williams, Time Lord, baby.
Time Lord. And so I underestimated them coming into it, but I think they're a scarier matchup. Whereas obviously they got Bam Adebayo, but but they have a lot of their offense running through Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. And I think they're spot-up shooters. They have a lot less playmakers, whereas almost everyone on the Celtics can put the ball on the floor who isn't Daniel Tice. Marcus Smart can put the ball on the floor. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker. Every single one of them is a playmaker on that team. They are more of a spot-up shooting team, whereas Jimmy Butler runs the offense. Bam can put it on the floor as a big man, but for the most and Dragic, I guess, but he's aging and he's really great in playoffs. But for the rest of their team, they're spot-up shooters, and so that's why I fear them a little bit less. They have fewer playmakers, and I think it would be a better matchup for us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so many different views, bro. Honestly, this could go many ways, but I guess we'll just have to see, man. After this game 7, so let's see who wins.
Yeah, man. It's. I just feel like that. And I was so shocked that the Celtics and Raptors have never faced each other in the playoffs. And I feel like after this, and then we kind of saw that in Game 6. Smart, kind of running in his mouth, but that's Smart. He's gonna do that if you're gonna, come at him. But and then Kyle Lowry, and then again we have a bunch of dogs on each side. But I feel like after this game, whichever way it goes, I think I can see a new rivalry just between us.
Yeah,
for sure. And well, this has been a quiet rivalry. It's kind of been like, I would compare this to the Cold War between the States and Russia. Like we have been two teams where have been. I swear we have been loading up for the past few years. It's been Celtics and Raptors, and we've been staying in our own lanes, and that playoff matchup never happened. We beat Miami. We had matchups with the Pacers. We had matchups with the Bucks, with Cleveland and LeBron, and that Celtics matchup just never happened, but we always saw each other across the bracket. Every year I would look, if we end up playing that Celtics team, that'll be a really good matchup, and it's every single year. And this year going into it, me and Pratik talked how excited we were about this matchup and how this is like, it's been years in the making and it's finally going down, and boy has it ever lived up to the hype. And so unbelievable. Can't wait to see how it goes. But thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Thank you, Sonny, for coming in as a guest. Really appreciate it. It was awesome having you. We'll have you on for future pods, I'm sure.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. That's it for the Celtics Raptors preview of Game 7. Feel free to drop a like, comment, subscribe on the video for more content, and we'll be coming at you with more playoff analysis.
Yeah, and stay tuned for tomorrow's drop. We're also going to drop a video after that Game 7 victory. But anyways, stay tuned for that one, guys. Peace out.